Welcome to Executive Insights. My guest today is Shuja Goraya, Chief Technology Officer with Precision Drilling. In this episode, we discuss Precision's continued digital transformation journey since 2020. Shuja shares his key learnings about maturing data literacy in the organization and strategies for bridging the data, insights, and execution gap. We explore the topic of sustainability and why the increased focus on the ESG mandate from the investors community is driving positive behavior change for the business world. Hi, Shuja. I'm so thrilled to see you. Welcome to Executive Insights.
Thank you, Nasheen. Great to see you as well.
Well, Shuja, I think we first met in 2019 at a technology conference in Vegas, and you spoke about Precision's digital transformation journey. Can you catch me up on the progress since 2020?
Yeah, sure. It's a good time to be talking about it. So, when we were talking back then, we were still new into this for digital foray. We were trying to figure out what would work or not. And I think since, we made some really good progress. I started with a very small team, a team of 2 people. We built it to about 20 people organization. And then of course, COVID hits. And, whereby we were running probably 160, 70 rigs in North America and Middle East. That went down to high 20s. And of course, releasing people and the strategic initiatives go on back burner. But luckily, somehow I think we were at the right tipping point, both in terms of where we were in maturity of our offering, and at the same time, people starting to get really much more comfortable with digital and technology and all sorts of virtual stuff. So, in all reality, we, the technology piece, and like most other technologies, really did very well. I think there was a point whereby we were at 90% of everything we ran had the automation and full digital technology offering as we have. And now, even as the as the activity starts to recover, the customer buy-in, the maturity of our offering, the maturity of our organization, both operations and sales pieces, and the value we are creating for customers and their comfort now in this digital piece of our offering, really things have worked quite well. We have 60-70% of every single rig today, which is a much bigger fleet we run, does that very well.
That's fantastic to hear. I'm really encouraged to hear the good news story. And you're always a firm believer in creating a digital mindset across your organization and achieving the greater operational efficiency through data-driven insights and automation. I think you would agree that the pandemic has helped to accelerate the digital mindset. But how do you mature the data literacy in the organization?
I hope you have 2 hours for me to answer this. Look, I think I tell you my personal learning here. I came in, I was working for a different organization. I was hired as a CTO in Precision Drilling. And I came in with a mindset, most of the problems are technology problems because I sit in one hierarchy and I control one piece of the organizational hierarchy is going to be simple. I'm going to improve the value of the product. I'm going to make this work and I'm going to have all the data which actually shows how it works. And then of course, I'll tell my peers, let's do it and it should be done because it makes sense. Oh boy, I was wrong. I learned a lot and I was absolutely wrong. Really the learning was first, yes, you have to have the infrastructure right. You cannot take the first step without having the data right, without knowing how to present that data to different stakeholders and what they are looking for. But I think much more importantly is that organizational buy-in. And organizational buy-ins rarely start at the top and then they just permeate all the way down. You have to work with all different levels. So really, if you think hierarchical structures and then adaptive structures, right, whereby we are just spontaneously meeting other people, bringing them up to speed and not solving a problem which is in my head, but the problem which they actually have and what they want to solve as a priority and the way they want to solve it. So it's a really, really long story, but I think digital piece was really a psychological piece, and that had to be solved not through an hierarchical organization, but through making contact, through connecting with real people and trying to solve their problem. And now I'm happy to say that not necessarily because of me, but the people I added in my technology organization, they were smarter than me in building these networks, and they have actually really gotten us to a place whereby the whole organization buys them. So it's been an interesting journey for sure. And if you have a minute, the other interesting piece was, so we went in from, oh, it's not going to work, we have tried it before, to, I like it, to, customers don't want to pay for it now. And so if you ask me if I relive my 3 years here, I would start with a very, very clear definition of what the value proposition is. What is that value proposition for different stakeholders? Really get really, really clear about it. Of course, fix the data and insights infrastructure at the same time, and then approach organization as almost a living being at different touch points, not just one or two touch points, and get that going. So value proposition, clarity, infrastructure, and then really the psychological acceptance by the organization and by customers, because we try to solve their problems.
I mean, the people and the culture and the behavior piece is always the most challenging and complex. And since data is really the digital currency underpinning so many different areas and so many important topics, I like to explore a very talked about topic in your industry, which is the convergence of IT and OT. So obviously there are so many aspects to this topic that we could explore, but I like to focus on one area that perhaps is most relevant to your role as a CTO, and that is, how do you bridge the gap between data, insights, and execution?
I think really everything is about making a better decision. That's it, right? We are trying to make a better decision. And hey, look, we'll use the digital so that we can consistently execute on that better decision. Now, I think there are, in at least my field, there are two decision makers. There is a decision maker who is in real time standing on the rig floor or the operator. And then there are kind of decision makers which are sitting in offices who actually planned the whole thing, right? They have competency for different reasons, and they can tap into much broader network of competency, not just one person who might be tired, haven't slept, and all sorts of things. And I think for both of these, the absolute important thing is to have the right data at the right time to the right people, because there are different stakeholders and different kind of data for different stakeholders, and in the right format, right? And in the right place as well. So you actually use data. I mean, like, you could easily say data could be a worst master and a great servant, because too much is going to be really bad. So I think that's really, really the important piece. You need to understand that stakeholder on the operator side. Then, so that person, if you display the right data, can make a decision and execute on it, because making a decision and not executing won't do anything. And then you go into the other stakeholder or the decision maker, which is the distributed one, which is somewhere else. The challenge is there is that gap, there is that delay, there is this reflex delay between when I have the data and then that communication channel from that person all the way to the operator, and then acceptance of everyone in between. And you're trying to make real-time decisions here. And for that, so that's really what we have tried to address. So we were lucky. What automation did for us was give us bandwidth. And what we wanted to make sure was we use that driller bandwidth, that competence bandwidth, to do something else. So what we have done is we have worked a lot on that human interface part of it. How best can I communicate this information? How best can I speed up that network? So now where we are is that when a distributed decision maker, which usually is either us today or a customer, wants to make a change, it's displayed in a way whereby, and it has all the right approval levels whereby the driller can easily execute on it. So really his competence is slowly moving from, okay, how to push this button or that button, into making the right decision or accepting the right decision through that interface through glass. So these were really the two things we were trying to do, right? And so is the rest of the people in industry. But the interesting thing is, as you get really, really good at interfacing through glass to an advisor, to some other competency, then you start thinking, why does it even have to be just our company or the customer? It could be 10 other service companies, right? I could easily tap into the person who brings this competency, but then I don't need to bring that person physically to my rig, reduce that, the COVID risk, reduce the safety risk, and, just not have human, driving all over the place. I think now we are very successfully taking that competence of interfacing and making decisions and understanding what the other person wants through that glass interface to other companies, and really building this whole new business model and revenue stream.
Yeah, it's fascinating and exciting all at the same time. And as I'm listening to you, it's very inspiring also, because by doing that and automating the process and closing the gap, you're also empowering your field
Yes,
operators, right? So
yes,
you're giving them
absolutely.
more interesting tasks to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just digress a little bit. Every time you talk about automation, and part of the reason automation systems who are going to automate and eliminate your job don't do very well with the operator is because is against your self-interest. Here, what we are asking is that, hey, look, let the, not some interesting tasks to be done by some digital story or automation. Let me actually raise your competence level. Let me actually give you a lot more exciting things to do. And that's also probably one part whereby we'll be able to attract the millennials and the other people into our organization, because their role is going to be a lot different than what it used to be 5 years or 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very well said. And now I'd like to pivot a little bit to another really important topic. A couple years ago when we first met, one of the things that had a lasting impression on me was your passion about sustainability. And through our recent conversation, I learned that the ESG mandate has gained more and more attention in the investors community. This is great news. And how would this increased environmental focus drive corporate and supply chain behaviors going forward?
Yes, I am indeed passionate. Like I had 7, 8 years of getting hard time by my colleagues on why do I drive an electric car. So you're finally pivoting. So look, Nasheen, I think the way I look at it is there are two mega institutions which are going to help society to get to that right level whereby we are taking from the planet which we can replenish, right? It's absolutely critical. We are the guests of this planet. We don't own it. So, and I'm absolutely convinced and passionate about it. So my point is the two organizations, the two institutions we have created, the governments and the businesses. I think governments with UN, lots of things, the SDGs, etc. They are on the right track. Yes, of course, a lot more should be done and can be done. But if you think about businesses, the challenge is the most of the CEOs today think that it's either or situation. Either you are profitable or you are putting all the things on sustainability and other things. And funny enough, 30, 40 years ago, it was the same kind of corporate culture which was thinking, oh, it's either profitability or safety, but it cannot be two. And if I even remind someone today about this, they'll say, oh, are you crazy? I mean, the way to be profitable is through safety. And I think we are at the same kind of point with sustainability as well. It is the way to make profits, right? The reason we are here as corporations is because we are solving problems, and not just people problem, but planet problems as well, and making profits as a result, right? But this cultural change, if you just leave it one CEO at a time, was going to take forever, because thousands and thousands of these corporations. What really has happened is this investor community, right? The Putnam guys, the BlackRock guys. If you go back 2006, there was a UN-backed Principles of Responsible Investing. About 63 investment managers signed up on it, and about $6 trillion of cumulative assets management. Today, and it's really accelerating. I actually don't know if there is any credible investment firm which doesn't have a sustainability agenda. That PRI signatories are 4,000, more than 4,000. There's $100 trillion of what these guys manage, and that money dictates what corporate CEOs are thinking about. If you think, go back to 2018, Larry Fink's letter to CEOs, right? He's talking about purpose, and it's not just about profits. And he manages $9 trillion worth of assets. So that pivotal change, honestly, after that letter is when I started hearing about it in my organization. I'm super excited. I think that's the right way. You take these top 200-300 investors, and they will change the rest of the business community. And now, as I say, it's 4,000. So you will see that pivot will come from these investors. And the reason the investors are interested in, I think there are 2-3 different things. One, millennials, 85% of millennials want to be part of that sustainability kind of investment story. So there is that pressure. I think that net zero now is becoming more and more as fiduciary duty, right? And responsibility is not as if it's, you can take it or not. And then when you get to be Larry Fink and managing $9 trillion, one has to understand this whole modern portfolio theory doesn't work anymore. You can't hedge your bets. What happens is if the planet fails, you fail. So it's really in best interest of everyone. And I think we are on that tipping point now.
That's wonderful to hear. I think, what I'm hearing you say is not only can businesses do good and do well at the same time, but going forward, doing good becomes the condition of doing well for organizations.
Very well put. I could have said it in 1 second like you, but yes, I agree. Absolutely.
You're an engineer by training and love to solve problems. So I like to close up this interview with a fun question. What would be the next big problem for you to solve?
I think really, as I said before as well, I learned a lot from this process, and I am first and foremost trying to figure out what are my other blind spots, whereby I don't go in and try to implement my ideas or my solutions. I'm wise enough to actually listen to organization and not the organizational hierarchies. I think I use that to implement, but that these adoptive networks, right? These ideas which flow freely across organizational different structures. I think that's really important. And then if you think about technology, we always said in digital as well, the workflows make the technologies work. You have to change the technology and workflow both at the same time, not one. I think now we are getting into not just that, but we have the opportunity to change our role, not just workflows, as an organization, as a business. And rather than doing all of this stuff for efficiency and be able to compete better with competitors and have a lower cost of service delivery or quality or some of these things, I think this has an opportunity to create a completely new track, right? A completely new space for you to go and serve your customers and your employees, whereby you're not even competing with anyone. So I think really, and then helping organization to understand these are the right workflows for what they want. These are the right roles which they want to play, which then genuinely they want to play, and then shifting that organization to be a completely different solution provider. and doing it sustainably is my challenge.
Well, I really enjoyed this conversation, Shuja. Thank you for your insight and inspiration.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this discussion as well, as always, Nasheen. Thank you.
You've been watching another episode of Executive Insights by the IT Media Group. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this episode, please check out other content on our YouTube channel, including CIO roundtable conversations and executive interviews. And don't forget to subscribe.